right?
So we don't make up. God has clearly and explicitly established those guidelines for us.
You'll be surprised when the Quran says, "Tilka hududullah la ta'taduha," something like this. These are the boundaries of God. Do not cross those boundaries, because God is the one giving us the boundary of how to contain and maintain our life. So, if we used our intellect, we would have known any human being. Doesn't matter how compassionate they are, they're not worthy of worship, because they would not be self-sufficient. They would not be independent. They would not be someone who is absolute in their character, because God is perfect and absolute. Everyone else is deficient. We are deficient.
So, for example, God is all powerful. You and I are not all powerful. Christ Jesus, even if he died on the cross, he suffered. If something is all powerful, can they suffer? Suffering means that you're weak. Suffering means that you don't control the person who is harming you. Can God have deficiencies or weaknesses? No, because he is perfect. Can God be ignorant? Can he not know? No, because he's all-knowing. So for us, anything which is deficient in any way cannot be God. Does that seem logical?
That makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Where are you going?
I don't know enough about it.
So when we talk about Jesus Christ in this
Are you
context,
going to heaven?
in this context, if we die in the state of submitting and surrendering God, what we say as Islam, then God has promised us that we will go to heaven, to paradise, to Jannah. So the reason I talked about Jesus, because many people find like, oh, because of this dying and crucifying is, let's follow that religion, right? Let's follow the religion. But we know that Jesus Christ didn't know everything, according to his own admissions.
King
He
of
says,
Kings,
he
Lord
said,
of Lords. He is the way, the truth, and life.
okay, did he say of that hour and of that day, no one knows, no human beings? Can I finish this verse from the Bible? And not even the angels, but only the Father?
Only the Father.
So if he exclude himself to know when the world is going to come to an end,
Flesh. He conquered death.
did he know
He is the
everything?
way, the truth.
Did he know everything?
He's the King of Kings, Lord of Lords.
Sure.
He's conquered death.
Did he know everything?
Yes, he is God.
I don't know enough
Okay.
about Christianity.
Anyway, I asked you, you're not really addressing the
If
question.
you've seen me, you've seen the Father. He is the way, the truth, and life.
If you see me, you see the president.
And there's security and
What does it
salvation.
mean? Do you see me or do you see the
I'm not the
president?
president, right? In that case.
Anyways, there are a lot of
You don't have to get to heaven.
arguments our Christian friends, brothers and sisters in humanity will bring on the table. We can address them and examine them in terms of their coherence, whether they make sense or not. So, the examples that we heard, that, Jesus said, you haven't seen me, you have seen the Father. Really? Who did they see? Did they see Jesus at all? Did they see the Father? Because the Father, according to them, says, you can't see me. In fact, if you study the Old Testament, Prophet Moses, he wanted to see God. Upon peace. God says, you can't see me. Not in this world. And then, of course, Quran describes the incidents, of course, in more clarity and more, what is called, ambiguous terms, exactly giving you the details, saying, he says, I want to see God. This lan tarani, you won't be able to see me. But if you see the mountain still stand, perhaps you can see me. So when God revealed some of his glory to the mountain crumbled to dust. Moses fainted, and then when he woke up, he realized he's not even worthy. He says, okay, forgive me for what I've even said. Because he realized that you do not have in this world to see God, because you're not equipped to see God in this world. I mean, can you stare at a bright sun in a very clear day for 10 minutes? You won't be able to. Your eyes will get damaged, right?
10 seconds.
This sun is nothing compared to so many other stars in our galaxies or other galaxies. And God is the creator of these weak stars. And his glory, his majesty, his sovereignty, his power exceeds far, far from this miniature creation that he has. And yet we want to see God. I mean, can a bacteria comprehend how I look like? We are a speck on this planet Earth. The planet Earth is a speck on our solar system, which is a speck on our Milky Way galaxy, and we want to see God. I mean, that's why Quran says vision cannot comprehend him, but he comprehends all vision. Yeah?
We have a question from this. Where do you stand with your belief now that God exists or does not exist? You were uncertain about it earlier. Where do you stand?
I think I still God exists, to be honest.
And you?
But you definitely opened me up to look into.
Let's take some of the steps. Something always has to exist, right?
Yes.
Because nothing cannot bring
Yes,
something.
definitely.
That something, there are some essential qualities that something must have. And I'll tell you why. If something that exists by itself, without being brought into existence, so it has self-existence.
Yes.
Means its existence is not dependent on something else. So if you exist, then you would have certain qualities of existence while existing. What we see in this world now, we see transformation. Things transform from one to the other.
Yes.
Without this something that existed always, without possessing a will and self-awareness, no transformation will happen. Can I give you an example? Do you drink tea, coffee, milk, whatever, right? You do.
Yes.
Imagine you go into your kitchen and you have all of that available. Say you want to make tea, 2 sugars, right? Your tea is in the cupboard, which is, you have to open the door.
Yes.
The milk is in the fridge. The water is in the
Yes.
yeah? There is a cooker which will needs lighting to get the fire, to bring the kettle in by putting the water, right? All of that. If you sit there and wait for a cup of tea,
Yes.
would it ever happen in front of you, a good cup of tea with 2 sugars, just because you sit there and you think things happen by itself?
Yes. No. You have to make it.
You need a willing agent to make it.
Yes.
Whether you programmed a robot to do that for you, or a human being like yourself. You can sit there for millions and zillions of years. These things would not self-assemble and come together and make a tea.
Yes.
This universe, with all this transformation, in all this different organization and complexities, and yet harmonious organization, you are put together in a particular harmony. Your heart, when they were developing as cells, they started aggregating to that place to form the heart tissue. They didn't make the liver. They all were exactly programmed to go where they're supposed to go. This kind of transformation and assembly, which is so organized, cannot come by itself. It just happens. You need a willing agent to do that. That something must possess will and self-awareness, and must possess power, and must possess knowledge, because that's what we see. The thing is, now your originator, who is will, and who has power and knowledge, and his power would not be limited, his knowledge would not be limited, and there cannot be more than one of those things, because otherwise there will be conflict of will. We already have come to a conclusion of a creator, originator. Sometimes creator thinks like, oh, I don't believe in a creator. Originator, transformer of all of those things, who is absolute and not deficient. So it's not something that is difficult for us to come to the realization by rational faculty of ours, intellectual reasoning, that there is a creator, and this creator is one. This creator has willed us into existence. Next question will be, why are we created? For a purpose. And once you know the purpose by looking at what this creator has communicated to us in the form of communication through certain agents, which we call prophets and messengers, communication in the form of scriptures, religion makes now sense, that there is a God. Because when we say God, we are saying this agent is worthy of our gratitude, worthy of our, to be grateful, to be thankful. He's worthy of having that. If you saved me from an accident, I should be thanking you, right?
Yes, definitely.
If God gives you life and gives you all the things in your faculty, sustain life, should you not be grateful and should you not be thankful? That's what the essence of worship is. To thank God, to glorify God, to praise God, to submit to His will. So, if you're convinced because of it is something that other people believe, so now you can be convinced that it makes sense to believe, that it is reasonable to believe. It is something that our heart and mind can accept that it is the truth.
Yes.
So this is what we say, that is the belief that we should arrive at, and this originator, we say he is Allah. In Arabic, he has all the beautiful names of perfection: the most merciful, the most kind, the most loving, the one who's just, the one who is the only, the first and the last. You will see a lot of these names described of our Creator to know Him. Because remember, once you know that there's something that is always there and He created us, He is one with a will and created us for a purpose, you'd want to know more about Him. You would not be able to know about this being just by speculation, because we are finite individuals. We have a limit of how much we know. Do you agree so far? Yes. The only way we can be certain and sure is when our Creator, originator, informs us, then we are no longer in any speculation mode. We will be certain in what He is and who He is. So we can ask you, will and will, to look into the Quran, which we say is a final revelation or final guidance from God, final book from God, and look into the life of Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam, the final messenger from God, Prophet Muhammad, so that you can see where the will of God is. Because you want to live according to the will of God. Because you want to submit to this will of God to fulfill the reason why you're created for. Rather than just simply to be happy and go for momentary happiness of, drinking, womanizing, drugging and whatever, makes you happy. People go for this momentary happiness, right? Some people are happy with drugs and rock and roll and women and sex and whatever, right? But they don't last. You want everlasting happiness, which is the hereafter, where we're provided. Not this 120 years or 30 years of your life. It will just go. We will die. But if we do not fulfill our purpose, we would not go to the place of happiness, eternal happiness. We may end up a place of torment and torture. We don't want to do that, so we have to avoid being punished by looking at what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to follow. What is enshrined in the guidance of God in the Quran and in the example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I humbly request you to, very smart and intelligent individuals, look into Islam. If it makes sense, embrace it. If it doesn't make sense yet, ask questions and ask Muslims, can you explain that to me? Once you realize this is the truth, accept it. Because truth is what is going to make you free from being enslaved to worshipping your desires, worshipping the culture, worshipping celebrities and pop stars, worshipping a nation or a flag. It will free you from this enslavement, and you will be worshipping the one who deserves our worship.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that reasonable?
Yes, very reasonable.
Let's leave it to that. It's getting cold, I can feel that.
Freezing.
All the best, take care, my friends Will and Will, but research more.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Beautiful.
Okay, you take care.
Thank you. You
Okay,
too.
pleasure speaking to you both.
You too. Very
Take
nice
care.
to meet you.
You too, thank you. Who stopped this? I don't know.